Rest of us are dead. Lot 666, then. A chandelier in pieces. Some of you may recall the strange affair of the Phantom of the Opera. A mystery never fully explained. We're told, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the very chandelier which figures in the famous disaster. Our workshops have repaired it and wired parts of it for the new electric light. Perhaps we can frighten away the ghost of so many years ago with a little illumination. Gentlemen.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies, and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com, and this is my good friend and co-host, Margot D. of Brooklyn Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
It is the final week of Musical March. Dun, 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 dun. Are you tired of hearing a pipe organ yet?
I'm kind of getting there.
I forgot how very, very full of pipe organ this this score is. I'd forgotten a bit about it. So funny. Today we're going to be talking about Phantom of the Opera, which I cannot wait. But maybe you're new, and actually, this is another occasion where we actually have an actual book. Which is great. For if you're new, lately we've been doing shorter literary sources, sometimes a novella or a short story, even a song. And all through this month of March of 2022, if you're listening to this later, we've been doing all musicals. So we've been doing musicals in March, only some of which were actually based on actual books. But today's is. And if you are a fan of The Phantom and you would like to discuss books and movies with us or other listeners of this podcast, there's a couple places where you can do that on the internet.
Be sure to like our Facebook page. We post all of the episodes there. We also have a private Facebook group, and it's a great place to interact with other people that listen to the show, to offer suggestions and ideas. You just type Book vs. Movie Podcast and ask to join. It's a place where you can just talk about books and movies, and especially these days, it's kind of nice to have that bit of an escape, which is what we hope to provide. We're also on Twitter and Instagram, but you type out Book versus a Movie in those cases. And we have an email, Book versus Movie Podcast, spell that all out, at gmail.com. And when we're looking for sources, they need to be something that we can get our hands on pretty easily, if it's available on Kindle or the Libby app or it's online. And then the movie needs to be streaming someplace. If it's a hard copy of the movie we have to get, neither one of us can make that happen. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking of ideas and suggestions, because we're always looking for ideas and suggestions. We're very listener interactive.
That we are. And speaking of which, if you really enjoy the show and you would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can join us on Patreon.
Yes, we have a Patreon page. We're putting all of our episodes from 2018 and then previous to that. It's actually 2019, I think, at this point. We just put up Carrie today, the one from Stephen King. We have some great episodes. There's about 80 of them. There are some of them that are free. If you want to go check that out for yourself, it's Patreon. And we just have a couple of really easy options, and it helps us just pay for the books and the movies, internet costs, putting the show together. So thank you so much for joining, all of you that have joined.
Yeah, thanks and welcome. Now, if you've been with us for a while, if you're not a new listener, then you may recall that we have actually already discussed this book once before. We discussed it, was it this last October or was it the year before?
It's all a blur, Margot.
I know. Recently.
Yes.
Certainly during this pandemic time. And by the way, we've been doing a brand new episode every single week. So we've got lots of episodes since the beginning of 2020 for you to enjoy. But we did this book for Halloween. If you're new, we do we have a couple months that are theme months. In October, we always like to do spooky, scary books and movies. And we did the Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I'm so bad at French. And the original silent movie with Lon Chaney. Today we are talking about the same book and the Andrew Lloyd Webber rock opera organy musical spectacular that was put on film, immortalized in 2004. Is that correct? Is that the year of the movie?
It's the Joel Schumacher version. So, right, like Margos said, there's been many film versions of Phantom of the Opera. The original is kind of a horror story, mystery, that kind of thing. The Andrew Lloyd Webber turned it into a musical in the mid '80s. He was on a roll. He's always on a roll, I guess. He's Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber. Excuse me. This original book was Gaston Leroux. He was a journalist and an author and a bon vivant. He kind of had to write sometimes just to pay the bills. He liked to spend money and he liked to write things. He was very much into mysteries. My head, but we're like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
He wrote one of the very first, quote unquote, locked room mysteries.
Yes.
Where you don't know how it could possibly have happened.
Edgar Allan Poe. Sorry, that name just popped out of my head.
Edgar
Now it's popped back in. Thank you. But he was a fan of both of those. So the story is based on something pretty kind of sort of true-ish. It's about the Paris Opera House, which still exists. You could still visit this place. But there was a mystery that happened there. There's all kinds of like rumors and things about ghosts being in there, and it's haunted, and weird things have happened there.
And there's like stuff under the building.
Right.
There's tunnels, and that's true. There's all kinds of
water,
weird, spooky stuff underneath, and water underneath the Paris Opera House.
Yes, because they thought that would help balance it out. How can I explain this to you? But that happens to be true. And so he decided to write a mystery, and there would be this person that is based in the basement who hides out there. He was part of one of the architects. That's the character. And the character, by the way, in the book, his name is Erik. That's our villain. That's our lead.
Yeah, he has a name.
He has a name. Yeah. Erik. Kind of like, I don't know. We all know Eric's. I mean, it just seemed always kind of like funny to me when we read that. Like, oh no, it's Erik. And he's a bit of a mystery person, but he knows all kinds of things about architecture and art and music. He has all these skills, but he has some sort of deformity and needs to hide himself, or thinks he needs to hide himself. And so he creates the story. There's an opera ghost, and we have a soprano named Christine, who he's in love with. There's a Raoul in all the versions. In the original book, Raoul has a father and a brother. They both interact in this story, but Christine is someone that the Erik is in love with. She's young, she's beautiful, she's a soprano, and he wants to kind of keep her. In the novel, all of the versions, she's considered like a really nice person, like she's compassionate, but there's just different levels of self-confidence that she has. She seems to be a little bit more confident in the book. In the movie, which has a 17-year-old as the lead, by the way. I didn't realize Emmy Rossum was that young.
Neither did I.
I was shocked. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because I had seen it I actually saw the production on Broadway, and I also saw it in London in the late 80s. Not with the original cast in either, unfortunately. Generally, it's an older, at least older than 17. But I think in the book, that's how old she is, right?
Yeah. She's a teenager. Leroux and Raoul, those names are like constantly just like battering around in my head. Raoul is in love with Christine. Christine has a point where in the show, there is a Carlotta that's this obnoxious diva. She bosses everybody around. She's Italian. She's very showy. Phantom is just kind of puts up with her because she puts, butts in the seats. People like seeing her, but everybody else hates her. Once Christine gets her big chance to go on stage, the Phantom falls in love with her, Erik, but so does Raoul. And Raoul knew her when they were kids. So they were friends when they were kids. And in his head, he kind of falls in love, watches her as an adult. She's sort of like, oh, you're cute, whatever. In the movie, I think they're more like, it's more like a life.
In the movie, I think it explicitly says that they were sweethearts.
Right. They were first
whereas
loves.
It's not really that so much in the book. One thing we forgot to mention about the book was that I believe it was originally published as a serial.
Right. It
like
was
in a
published
magazine,
in a
right?
magazine. Right. There was
And
like
so
10
the
parts.
book, by the way, it's kind of long, but it's a very riveting read. It has many cliffhangers for that reason, because you're reading it in installments. And so each little installment ends with like, dun dun, the Phantom appears and something really bad is about to happen or has just happened and you don't know what's going to happen next. So the book is chock full of cliffhangers.
Yes.
From start to finish. It's well written. It's very, it does grab you. Erik is such an interesting character because, like Margos said, he knows. Basically, he's like stuck down in the dungeon of this opera house. He's got nothing to do but like read and learn about stuff. He knows magic, like he knows all this
He's
stuff.
accomplished.
Yes, but he can't show his face. And so, yeah, he has this thing with the opera house that they pay him to not wreck things, I guess. When the book opens, the opera house has been sold, right, to new owners. And so these new owners take over the opera house and everybody's like, oh, well, don't forget, you got to pay the Phantom. The Phantom gets paid this much and he's got that box. You got to keep it open for him all the time. And they're like, why are we keeping a valuable box empty? That doesn't make any sense. And so they kind of poo-poo the whole thing. And really quickly, Erik the Phantom is like, dun, 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 and they tell you,
no one gets
now
in my
I'm going to
box.
destroy everything. Yeah. So again, a lot of drama, a lot of cliffhangers.
Yes, and he also, the way he's described as he is kind of a monster. I mean, it's like a skull face that he has. Also, doesn't he sleep in a coffin? Like it's layer upon layer.
I think, yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
He's a weirdo.
He's a big weirdo. He's scary. He's scary and a big weirdo. He goes to visit Christine in the dressing room after she sings. And this is when Raoul is coming over to give her flowers and say, hey, remember me? And the Phantom and Christine are talking. And then he just disappears just as Raoul's going to walk in. So Raoul is like, where did this person go? The thing with the Phantom is he's into magic, like Margot says. He has mirrors everywhere, escape hatches, trap
two-way
doors.
mirrors. Yeah.
Right. So he can get in and out of the situation. And Raoul is he just not that bright? He's very naive. He and his brother.
He's very naive. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. He's no Erik, put it that way.
No, he's not. And so he's a little bit weaker. There's also a person called the Persian who is a big part of this story, which is not in the musical.
Not in the musical at all,
No.
this character of the Persian. I totally forgot about the Persian.
Yeah, and he's a big deal. He knows all the different stories and he helps really move the plot along. I'm kind of surprised that they don't include him in there.
Well, they instead have in the musical, which again we'll talk about in a minute, but in the musical you have the character played by Miranda Richardson.
Yes.
She's sort of taking that role, which is kind of interesting. But the Persian, yeah, he's the one guy who totally believes that the Phantom is real, knows a little bit about how to deal with him. And yes, he's the one that ultimately kind of reveals the Phantom's secret and makes it possible for Raoul to save Christine. But there's a lot of drama, a lot of like woman tied to the railroad track kind of moments.
There's gunpowder in the basement, and at one point he's saying to her, okay, either you either marry me or I'm going to destroy this place, or we'll die together. I'll just like blow everything up and we'll be in there together. But she has two keys to pick from. One's like shaped like a grasshopper, and the other has the scorpion. And so they're all like, should she pick the scorpion or the grasshopper? Because either they're going to blow the thing up or it'll
find
drown.
out next week.
I know. Or it'll like put the gunpowder underwater and then it won't explode. In all the versions, there is a spoiler, but the big thing about this show is that the chandelier comes down and kills people. And that's part of the whole in the book, because Leroux is that's why I keep getting my names mixed up. But Leroux was a journalist for years, so he kind of has that journalistic angle with it when it starts. Whereas in the movie, it's just straight up a flashback. Like, oh, hey, what happened here? It was an auction or something.
Yeah, that's how the musical is. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. But so there's just this daring do. They're going back and forth. Raoul's brother dies at some point. Christine returns to Erik and basically says that, I love you, and she feels compassion for him. There's at one point where she gives him a kiss, and he no one's ever kissed him before, no one's ever shown him love, affection, any kind of attention, this positive attention before. He doesn't know what to do, and he's overwhelmed with that. And it's at that point he's kind of ready to let her go, but he says, I'm basically going to die without you. And so he tells the Persian, I'm just going to take off. And when I die, just put my notice in the paper. And it just says like Phantom dead, or just...
It says like Erik is dead.
Erik.
And it's like all it said. Like you really phoned it in.
Yeah. But that's the end of the story. And so Christine is a little more vibrant.
She is. And Erik has... Again, the book is it's long, and it's, you got to bear in mind it's a serial. You got to keep people stringing along. In the book, Erik not only has a name, but he has a family. He has a whole backstory. Mm-hmm. He had a mother who, like when he says that when Christine kisses him, and he says, nobody's ever kissed me before. He said that his mother would run away when he would run away from him when he wanted to kiss, and he has a father who was. His father was in architecture or construction or something like that. It's one of the reasons why he knows so much about buildings and how they're made. And so these are just a lot of just really interesting background. And yeah, it's a lot of like these cliffhangers of, which is she going to choose, the grasshopper or the scorpion?
Right.
Is he going to let her go, or is he going to force her to be his bride in the underworld forever? Like, it's just, but yeah, that's the story. And it really, gosh, there have been a lot of adaptations. We were just saying before we got on the air, so many.
There's the first one, or one of the first ones, it's 1920. I'm sure there was a silent movie. I mean, I'm looking at all these other versions. I mean, Lon Chaney, who did his own makeup, did the version from 1925 that most people talk about. There's one in the 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean, people take this material and do what they want with it. In the 80s, we have Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber. He created Cats. He's just coming off of creating Cats and just super successful. Musicals on the West End and Broadway in the 80s, it's just like peanut butter and jelly. They made money.
A lot of stuff was going on. Boy, hand over fist.
Yeah.
And I remember, people were just fighting for Phantom tickets.
Yes.
Cats was huge.
Cats.
And by this time, Cats had been out for a long time, but it was a smash success. It was still selling out all over the place. And Phantom came out and like blew people's minds. I mean, it sounds silly to say now, especially watching this movie, but I mean, people were like, you just got to see it. You're not going to believe. Oh, just don't run out of the theater when the chandelier falls. People really, really freaked out. It was a big time on the stage, like Margos said, in both in London and in, you had Les Mis at this time also coming out with the rotating stage. People were like, whoa, and
I'll never forget the first time I saw Les Mis.
It was crazy.
It was amazing.
Starlight Express.
Yes.
Everybody's on roller skates. Also Andrew Lloyd Webber. I mean, there was just a lot of stuff going on. And I remember, people just like scalpers and just fighting over each other to get into the theater to see this musical, which is hard to imagine these days. But one day it'll be like that again on Broadway, I'm sure.
Well, it starts in 1985. Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber was just sort of walking around. He was in New York, he said one day, and he was bored. And he just went into a bookstore and he saw the book, The Phantom of the Opera, the original story. And he's like, oh, I wonder what this is about. And then he read it, and him and his writing partners, Charles Hart. By the way, I think the music's really beautiful in this.
It's pretty good. It's better than I remembered. And again, Andrew Lloyd Webber, this is Cats already. Like he'd already had a whole like 70s career, and now he's having a whole 80s career, which is very different than the work that he did in the 70s. It's interesting because it's, in many ways, it's a very traditional kind of a play, but you've got pyrotechnics and you've got first of all the stagecraft of it. And then you also have, because it's Andrew Lloyd Webber, you also have these like rock, like, like the rock undertones of stuff. Although there's it's all set in the 19th century mostly. But yeah, I mean, it was massive. It was massive. I remember the posters where it was just the mask, no text, text.
Well, this is the people
not saying the title.
No,
not saying it was Andrew Lloyd Webber. Not saying the theater it was playing in. Just the mask. That's all you need.
It's the same thing they did with Cats. Like they had that logo for Cats, and that got and you and I were talking about. We talked about Cats last year, by the way. In case you want us to go into more about Andrew Lloyd Webber, we talked about a lot last year. But it's one of those brilliant marketing things where just everybody had a Les Mis sweatshirt, or they had a Cats,
absolutely,
Phantom of the Opera. Absolutely. All that stuff was just huge. And this musical comes out, it does well on the West End. A couple of years later, it hits Broadway. And once something hits Broadway and it's family friendly, there's no cursing in here.
That's true. Yes, that's a good point. It is family friendly.
You could bring your whole, husbands and sons probably go in kicking and screaming, but in my family anyway. But it does very well. His wife Sarah Brighton played the part of Christine.
Sarah Brightman, who has a beautiful voice.
Lovely voice.
Beautiful voice. I'm not the biggest fan, I gotta say, at the risk of annoying the theater folk. Again, I'm not the hugest musical person. I wasn't the biggest fan of Michael Crawford as the Phantom. I've liked some of the other Phantoms better.
Yeah.
I find his voice, I just didn't find he was the right, I don't know. To me, he wasn't the Phantom, but...
Well, there's other notable Phantoms that...
There's a lot of them.
Mark Jacoby, Marcus... I think there are a lot of rockers that have done this, like you said, because he likes rock.
Yes.
And it's not opera. The women's parts are opera.
Yes.
For sure. For Carlotta, and Christine, it's more operatic. We were talking about this last week when we were talking about Carmen Jones. And so there's...
Definitely.
Right.
Yes, very that.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is half of that's showbiz, musical singing, and some of it's operatic, and it's high B's and just
it's up there because Sarah Brightman could sing that stuff,
right?
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's Michael Crawford. There was Colm Wilkinson, who was popular. Jonathan Roxmouth, who's did it the world tour. There's a 25th
I don't remember
anniversary.
Who I saw. Yeah,
that movie, and I haven't seen it. I've never seen this musical. Margot's seen it twice. I've never seen it. So my first time seeing it is this past week. I only saw the movie. I know, which is bizarre. I live in New York. You'd think I'd gone all the time. By the time I moved here, though, Phantom was a show for the tourists. And New Yorkers could be snobby.
Yeah, by the 90s, it was totally just the tourist thing to do, to go see Phantom. Yeah.
And it's expensive. So
it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. They're asking, you're at least $100 for a seat. So it's not, anyway. But it does super well. There's a 25th anniversary performance that everybody talks about that are Phantom geeks. That's something you can rent and stream anywhere. We're not talking about that today, though. We've paired it with the 2004 film from Joel Schumacher. So let me do this. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll play the trailer and then we'll go right into the movie.
A Joel Schumacher film, Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera, on the big screen for the first time. Rated PG-13. Starts Wednesday, December 22nd.
All right. So, of course, people are going to make a movie out of this. This makes money hand over fist. You have a complete audience just built in. And they'll go in multiple times because they know all the words to every song. And I just read this. I didn't even realize this. Andrew Lloyd Webber, they were going to start it in 1989. No, sorry. He was the production didn't begin until 2002 because Andrew Lloyd Webber's divorce interrupted those proceedings. He's on his third or fourth
which
wife
is why
now?
Sarah Brightman is not in the movie. Yeah, I forget how many wives he's had, but yeah. I will say, so the musicals, the stage musical, did you watch any of that 20th anniversary?
I saw a little bit online. I mean, I can get why people were, the staging is Unbelievable.
It's pretty impressive.
Wow.
It really is. Yeah. And when you're seeing it I think in New York was at the Majestic.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the boxes there and they make use of the actual theater. It's really cool. Like in the movie, the show opens with an auction. Mm-hmm. It's 1919, which until watching this movie, because I was pretty young when I saw this on stage, it didn't cross my mind. And it doesn't make that much sense, except I think it is kind of interesting in the movie that we're post World War I. Mm-hmm. So this is a time in Paris where, this is not a happy time. It's a very, there's a depression. A lot of young men have died. I kind of wonder how Raoul is still alive. Maybe he was too old to fight in the war.
He might have been.
He might have been. So, there's a lot of cultural overtones about that being an era that is completely dead and gone away and it's never coming back, that I'm sure a London audience would have been aware of. Me as a kid watching it in New York City, certainly when I watched it in New York, I mean, in London, I didn't notice that either, but watching it in New York City, like you just don't have that context as an American because we're not taught history. So you don't have that like extra layer of like, oh, this is a world like, wow, look how glorious and lush and everything's gilded. And, you just don't think about that. Mm-hmm. At least not then, not in the 80s. So I liked that that we had that sepia opening of the movie that way. But yeah, I think for 2004, I thought it held up pretty well.
It looks great. Joel Schumacher is like, R.I.P. He was a talented director. Some of his stuff, like he did probably everybody calls the worst Batman movie, but he tends to be a little schmaltzy. He also did The Lost Boys, which is like one of my favorite vampire movies, which is a pretty great movie. He is a stylish director, and it makes sense that he would take on this production. There's some casting choices I kind of was like, one being Gerard Butler. They said he's not really a singer. I'm like, yeah, you think?
Yeah, he gets very shouty. To seem like a Sebastian Bach.
That's what I was thinking of before, Margot, when I lost my brain. Yeah, Sebastian Bach did the part.
I'd like to have seen that.
I would have, because he can
never
really
saw
sing.
Him do it. But he can really sing.
He can really sing. So that's something like, yeah, we have Gerard Butler, 34 years old. He was a hot movie star. I mean, it's kind of...
Why so silent, good monsieur? Did you think that I had left you for good? Have you missed me, good messieurs? I have written you an opera. Here I bring the finished score. Don Juan triumphant. Fondest greetings to you all. A few instructions just before rehearsal starts. Carlotta must be taught to act, not a normal trick of strutting around the stage. Our Don Juan must lose some weight. It's not healthy in a man of Piangi's age. And my managers must learn that their place is in an office, not the arts.
Emmy Rossum, 17. I think she was 16 when she got the part. She's, back, by the way, very successful singer. She's also sung many, many operas in 5 different languages she can sing in. I mean,
wow.
Yeah. So she's a super impressed, and she's beautiful. The camera loves her. She's stunning.
She's gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And
she's great. She's a great choice for Christine.
Absolutely. We have Patrick Wilson as Raoul, who's he's a hunk. He's and can sing. He's done a lot.
Can sing.
Yeah, he's done Broadway theater. Miranda Richardson as Madame Giry. Minnie Driver as Carlotta is amazing.
And this is true. I mean, this is true of the stage version. I mean, the casting on this is so good. I mean, Gerard Butler, I think his acting is great. I think, the acting part of the role, he totally nails it. The singing is a bit shouty. But all of the character actors, like it's a big cast, and as it is for the musical, but the kind of chemistry of this ensemble of all the character actors, of the guys who own the theater, Simon Callow and the other fellow whose name is escaping me, who's the other one who owns the theater with him? Oh, Sharon Hines, who's very good. Miranda Richardson. So she's sort of, again, taking the place of our Persian in the original story. All the little ballerinas, they're great.
Yeah.
The stagehands, they're great. It's really good. The character actors on this are superb.
Absolutely. And Minnie Driver, she didn't sing opera. She's a good singer. She sings the last song, I believe, on the closing credits. That's her voice. But in here, it's Margaret Priest or Preche. I'm not sure how to say her name, but because it just needed to have that operatic style.
Yeah.
Signora.
Maestro. Think of me fondly when we've said goodbye. Remember me once in a while. Please promise me you'll try. When you find that once again you long to take your
And it's great. It's great because it's operatic, but it's also kind of like grating. It has this like edge to it that Minnie Driver is giving us in her speaking voice for this character. It's a really great
Performance.
Combo of those two voices. It's great.
I'd say the art direction is great. The costumes are great. The wigs are
beautiful. Beautiful. The lighting, everything.
The sets are fantastic. And he does move the action along. So he took out the Persian. We don't get too much of her backstory, but we still have the opera ghost. We have her singing. I like the sets. I love when they did the singing. I love the staging of that. I thought that looked incredible. And the chandelier looks amazing.
It's very impressive.
It really is.
It was another time, like they weren't doing stuff like this in the theater in the 80s. And so when you go into the Majestic Theater or wherever it was playing in London, I don't remember anymore. First of all, you walk in and the theater's really beautiful and there's this beautiful chandelier. You're like, wow, look at that thing. And you can't take your eyes off of it. It is gorgeous. And, it starts out on stage and it's covered.
Right.
There's this big thing under wraps on stage. That's right. And then you have the auction. And then when the thing goes up, it is just like you get goosebumps. And they really recreated that effect of being in the live theater and having the chandelier go up and come to life. The effects are really good.
They're really great. They're really great. Yeah. Jennifer Ellison plays Meg. She's the little girl. It's got some great people in it. It's the same story that he comes to the dressing room to congratulate Christine when she has her chance to go on stage. I liked they kind of animated the part where she had Minnie Driver when she had the frog in her throat, like he gave her the curse, and so she was croaking. I liked the part on when they did the cheesy opera, like the really tacky one.
It's so great. I mean, and when you're watching it, if you're imagining like you're a Broadway audience watching and you get to laugh at opera that you can't in real life, elitist and exclusive and you see it like just poking fun at how very silly it can be.
Yes.
Like the horses and the costumes and the like we're supposed to believe that these two people are in love and she's shrieking and the music does such a great job of telling the story. That's really well done. It's
my question.
He's not my favorite on earth, Andrew Lloyd Webber, but I gotta hand it to him on this one. I really do.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, so with the chandelier, when you saw it, the musical, because I haven't seen the musical, does it crash like in Act 1 or?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it does.
So it's before you go to intermission.
Yeah. So it's on the stage. If I'm remembering correctly, again, I'm going way back.
I know.
Going in the way back machine to the Reagan years. Yeah, it swoops down. It's sort of like an amusement park almost kind of a thing, where it swoops down, and then it looks like right before it's gonna hit the audience, although there's a lot of space there, it swings inward towards the cast on the stage, right?
Right.
But it's really impressive. It was people were just gasping and
What about the
clutching their
part where they're on
pearls.
the boat, like when they're on water? So there isn't water; it's just
It
the
was
stage
beautiful.
moving.
It's just the stage. Okay, if I'm remembering correctly, they're in the boat, which must be on casters of some kind. There's a smoke machine to give the illusion of the water, and then just candles everywhere. It's pretty cool looking.
It's atmospheric. Mm-hmm. Right.
No more talk of darkness. Forget these wide-eyed fears. I'm here. Nothing can harm you. My words will warm and calm you. Let me be your freedom. Let daylight dry your tears. I'm here with you, beside you, to guard you and to guide you.
Say you love me every waking moment. Turn my head with talk of summertime. Say you need me with you now and always. Promise me that all you say is true.
Raoul is in love with Christine, and then she really is torn because Gerard Butler is our Phantom. He's not hard to me. It looks like he just has a little bit of a burn on his face. He's not even that messed
He's got like
up.
his little birthmark.
Anybody could get over that in a second.
I think we can deal with that. I think we're okay. I think you're fine,
handsome.
Gerard.
I mean, yeah, he's a little jealous. He has a bit of a temper. Sure. No one's
Sure.
perfect.
He hanged a stage-hand.
Oh my God, the hanging of the stage
nobody's
hand.
perfect.
That's also in all of the different versions. And I do like Miranda Richardson. They have that whole thing like looking in the eye, like looking people in the eye. So that way they can't choke you or they can't hang you.
Yes, which is in the book. That's the Persian that has that.
Right. He's the one with the
thing,
great
yeah.
advice. Right. And they go back and forth and they have all these songs. I found it a little repetitive, just sort of like the whole the love triangle gets a little tiresome, I think.
It does a little bit. Like, just make up your mind already, Christine.
Right.
Really?
I mean,
can all
two
just get on
handsome
with our
guys. I
lives.
get it. Wow, what a
Yeah.
That's quite a conundrum. But one of them has to be one. How about the guy you could take out in public? Who's I don't know. I mean, Gerard Butler's handsome, and it's fun, and it looks great. Like the way that they do the mirrors. That's like totally from the book. That whole mirror
Yes, that's all
sequence.
in the book about the two-way mirrors and all of that. Again, on stage, it looks great, and
Yeah.
it looks fantastic in this movie.
Right.
Really impressed by the effects in this movie.
Yeah, I think this movie looks great. There's something kind of missing, and I think there's something about the live experience that you just can't replace.
Yeah, I think that's true. It is thrilling to see, all that stuff. If you could imagine that happening just like in a room with you,
Right.
right in front of you, it's different. It's a different experience. But I mean, it's always going to be that way. I think I have to hand it to Mr. Schumacher that he really did a good job of taking that experience and recreating it in a cinematic way, much the same way like when we talked about Oklahoma. It's not going to be the same as being in the room with the guy singing "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning," but let's bring the cinema to it. He's out among all the the fields and all of that. So I think in a similar way, I think that whole opening of having the sepia tone. It's post-World War I Paris, and we're in the opera house, and the age makeup. That's, if I had to be a nitpicky one thing, I'm going to say the age makeup is a little
Not great.
It's a little precious. Like, we didn't. I feel like we could have done a little better with that.
Yeah,
but okay. I liked it, and I liked that. Which the musical it doesn't do. The having these big scenes, like the masquerade scene, that's pretty much how it is on stage.
right.
That's pretty much how
That
it
seems
looks.
like it did.
But having the fighting where they're up on the roof of the opera house, that when they're in the when she goes to the cemetery, that as like setting it in the cemetery, I thought that was really well done, really well staged, and all of the dungeon stuff, with the stonework and all of that, I thought was really super good.
So what's missing? Because there's something kind of missing here, and I don't know.
There is a little something missing.
I don't know if it's Gerard Butler's voice. Could be a little. I
don't know that it's just. I mean, yes, that's true, but it's hard to say because they're being very true to the musical. We're not adding anything extra. They really didn't add anything, except for that. Even the opening, because the opening of the musical is the auction.
Right.
With the little monkey thing. But I agree, there is a little something that's missing there. To be honest, I feel the same way about the musical.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like that little, like something is not quite, maybe it's like something about the chemistry, something that we're not getting. Yeah. Whereas like, in the book and also in the silent movie, like in the book, Erik is a very tragic figure, and he has a completely different backstory than he has in this musical or in this movie, I should say. I don't remember that whole thing about the Madam what's her name rescuing him from the freak show.
The freak show was hard to watch.
That was hard to watch.
Yeah.
In the book, Erik has been so brutalized by the world that he is irrevocably damaged. He's really broken with reality. You're not going, like you just said, Christine, make up your mind. Do you want hot Gerard Butler or do you want hot Raoul? Which hot guy do you want? That's not the choice in the book. In the book, he is much more disfigured, which is a much bigger issue in the 19th century. But also, he does not have any sense of right or wrong anymore. He really has crossed all of these Rubicons to where he's not going to be, even if she went with him and married him and loved him, he's really not healthy. He really is not a person who can make good human decisions anymore. It's a different kind of a choice that she's making. And she, and she doesn't, also, she's not doesn't seem to be completely in love with Raoul in the book. So it's a completely different kind of a choice that she's faced with. She's really more making the choice of which of these choices is going to do the least damage to the most people. Do the least amount of harm. Whereas in the musical and in the movie that we're talking about, she's trying to choose between these two hot guys who she seems to be in love with, which is different.
Shape in the shadows, whose
see. Curse you! You little lying Delilah! You little viper! Now you cannot ever be free! Damn you! Curse you! Stranger?
It's totally different. It ends, so the movie ends with Raoul going to her grave. She just passed away, and so he's leaving the Phantom's music box for her. And they realize that there's a rose, and there's a freshly left rose. So is the Phantom
With a
dead?
ring tied to it.
With the ring tied to it. It's like, is he alive or is he not? I mean, is he still visiting her? Does he still know about her? I mean, I don't know. But that's sort of the mystery. But it kind of, for me, it's sort of like they build it all up and then it's sort of like, well, what do we do with it now? Because she has to pick one of them. So she's going to pick one of them and then that's the tragedy. And then it's not earth shattering. I mean, it's just sort of like your classic love triangle.
No, it seems like they lived kind of a long time and they had a nice long marriage and
happy marriage, good life.
Yeah.
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 So it's
they're part of the nobility.
Yeah.
They probably made it through the war. Probably not too bad.
Well, I was just thinking, like a few weeks ago, we talked about Chicago, and like that's a great show, and it's a great movie, and they're very different from each other, and they have a different feel to them, but they just managed to take that experience and really make it work. And here, it just didn't land for me. I think of the book versus movie, I would take the book.
I would take the book too. I think the book is such a, again, it raises more questions. Mm-hmm. It has a lot more, it makes you think more than this Beauty and the Beast kind of take of the musical. And again, like I'm saying, what you're describing is an experience I had watching the musical on stage. I don't feel like it's the film's fault per se. I think that's kind of how the show is written. Which is fine for Broadway,
Yeah, I mean, you're just looking for an escape. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fine. I mean, there's stuff I've seen. Like, I remember going to see the Mormon musical, like with the original cast and everything. I super loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was funny. When I used to have an iPod and I had, shuffle, those songs would come up on the iPod, and I would just be like, what is this? I don't want to listen to this. This is Yeah, it was fine.
Sometimes it doesn't translate.
Yeah,
all over the place. Yeah. But I don't, like I said, I don't fault the film. I think this is just part of the adaptation, this particular adaptation of this particular story. The book is really thought-provoking and exciting and all kinds of crazy, like MacGyver-esque things that the Phantom does to get at people in a variety of ways. So I want to give it to the book. I really enjoyed this film, though. I thought it was a very well done adaptation of this musical. And the musical, I think, is it's a good adaptation of the book. I still kind of prefer the silent movie, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's where I kind of land, too. All right.
Yeah, but I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it. I enjoyed watching it. It was good.
No, it was a good suggestion.
And the music holds up.
Yes,
which surprised me. I was ready for the music to sound a little, little 80s, and it does a teeny bit, but not as much as I thought it would.
I think I don't know. The songs I thought they were really pretty. I thought they were just nice lyrics, nice.
Yeah.
I just thought it's how I like my songs, so I was totally fine with that. All right.
So that wraps up musicals in March.
Yes. We'll probably do it next year.
It was a good one.
But it was a fun one. It was a good one.
Yeah.
Well, my question for you're going away, right?
Just for a couple of days.
Oh, okay. Next week is my birthday.
I know.
I was thinking I'm bringing up the spreadsheet. I'd really like to do Hustlers, which is the J-Lo movie, and it's based on a magazine article from the New York Magazine, The Cut.
Oh,
it's about strippers.
I've never seen it.
It's fun.
Oh yes,
exotic dancers.
This is the one like she did the Super Bowl thing afterwards. She's up on the pole. Yeah,
it's a great cast. I thought it was really fun when it came out, and so I thought like a nice quick one would be fun to do. And
cool. Yeah,
excellent.
I've never seen it.
Awesome. So I'll post that into the Facebook group. It's pretty easy to get. Follow us on all the things. Once again, please send us your suggestions. What we have coming up is I think we're going to do API in May. We have the summer blockbusters, or what's June is LGBTQ month, maybe Pride month. That's what I'm trying to say. Maybe you have ideas for that. September's back to school. October, we have scary movies. I mean,
we love a theme.
We love a theme. So, but anything at all, really, seriously, send us your ideas, or, check out our past episodes. It'll give you an idea of like the kind of the breadth of stuff that we've covered. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all of my social media callouts are at She's Not Your Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fitchick, mostly for Twitter and Instagram. My site is brooklynfitchick.com. And we will be back soon with a new episode. Everybody, thanks so much for joining the show. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We are a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. We follow the hashtags Lady Pod Squad and Potter Family. If you want to support the show, you can go to our Patreon page, go to Patreon, and look for Book versus Movie Podcast. We have a basic Facebook page, but we also have a private Facebook group. Go to Facebook and type in Book vs. Movie Podcast group if you want to join that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Book versus Movie. Spell all those words out. If you'd like to send us an email, it's Book versus Movie Podcast, spelled it all out, at gmail.com. You can follow Margot D at Brooklyn Fitchick on social media, and Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thanks so much again for checking out our show, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.